Hey everybody, welcome back. We're getting ready to do episode 4 of our What is Freedom series. Everybody say hi to Tag from Life Done Free.
Everybody.
Hey, Tag, before we start, I want to say something to the audience. So I've noticed that there have been dislikes on these videos, on all 3 of the previous ones. And there's no negative comments though. What I want to ask the audience, that if you are going to dislike the video because of the content and not the delivery. I realize this is not the most polished delivery out there, but if you disagree with it on the content and you dislike it because of the content, please make a comment below. And the reason being is this is not an echo chamber. And as we said before, debate is not only welcome, but encouraged here. And if Tag and I can't defend or are not willing to defend our stances, then maybe they're not worth defending. Okay, so please, if you disagree with this, feel free to leave it. We'll treat any comment, as long as it's respectful and not a personal ad hominem attack. We'll treat it with the dignity it deserves. Okay, if you guys can do that, that'd be awesome. And then another thing that I want to mention is, Tag, you said something last week whenever we were joking back and forth about the t-shirt shop and you were going to go out and tell people to get out of the system. It got me thinking, and it's kind of a corollary of success builds on success, and it's freedom builds on freedom, because I know 4 or 5 years ago when I had the mortgage and I had all the consumer debt and we weren't quite as free as what we are now, I was not able to go out and encourage people to be free. And now that we've gotten out underneath that debt, I've got more time to do videos like this. I'm not out having to hustle second jobs, working an extra 40 hours a week for Pizza Hut when I'm trying to get out of debt. And you said that jokingly, but I think you hit on something really, really important that people need to realize. The freer you get, the more freedom you can spread, the more you can pursue it. So it struck me when I was doing work this weekend this week that made perfect sense.
Yeah, well, G, I think this is an interesting topic, because the fact of the matter is we talk about getting out of the system, but here we are on YouTube.
Yeah.
Right. And you talk about a t-shirt shop and you're, part of the system. But here's the thing, is that if you can get your dependency from the system all on a voluntary basis, which is my goal, right? I mean, I still have internet, right? I mean, I still have some of those luxuries in life that, excuse me, I could live without if I needed to. But maybe we should change our message to, instead of just get out of the system, just get out of the system in every aspect you can that's not voluntary. Right? Because you're not going to escape the system totally. There's just, I can't grow salt. I can't. Unless you know some way to do that, I don't know any way to do that.
Well, it's just like our conversation about modern homesteading. What we're not really homesteading by the pure sense of the word, but we're pursuing modern homesteading, where we try to make it so we can handle as many problems as possible with the tools, materials, and skills that we have on hand. Right?
Yeah, I would say we're freesteading.
You know what? Freesteading. I like that.
That's just a perfect term. I've talked in many videos about how, prepping leads to homesteading and homesteading leads to freesteading. And really what that means is where homesteading, kind of combines with off-grid living and combines with breaking out of that system. And or at least that's what it means to me. And so, by the way, there's on the freesteading front, there's a pretty good announcement coming up on our live tomorrow, just so you know.
Oh, everybody be there. It's 7 p.m. Central, right?
Yeah, 7 p.m. Central. And I'm going to announce that big project we've been working on, but only on my channel first. And so that, we can get some people to, I'm not going to go anymore. We're just going to leave it at that. I'll talk about it tomorrow.
Well, excellent. I'm going to put this one as a premiere, because we're going to be here. We were at the potluck last Friday, so we didn't have a chance to do the premiere, but I'm going to do this as a premiere. And so everybody can come here and, well, actually they're watching it right now, aren't they? We're filming this on Thursday, folks. I gotta remember that spatial difference. Well, as soon as this is over, go over to Tag's channel and get ready for his premiere or his live stream with a big announcement. I
Yeah.
I already know what it is, and I think it's pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think,
Well, you've helped, along the way, G, and I thank you very much for your help and those little steps for, spreading freedom and donating, that energy to a worthy cause.
thank you very much. Thank you
Mhm.
very much. All right. With all that said, let's get into the principles. Okay, we're on principle number 8, which is men are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. Um, I'll start off by saying, I was doing research on this one and number 9, and it struck me that William Blackstone,
Mhm.
who was a 18th century jurist and judge, a lot of his writings popped up in discussion about these two principles. And so I started doing a little bit of looking into it. And, it seems like a lot of the ideas behind these principles were part of the thought process uh, in pre-Revolutionary War England with
Mhm.
Blackstone and some other prominent people.
Yeah. John Locke.
Yep, and I find that really fascinating that the seeds for the seeds for these principles were laid in English common law and the philosophy behind it.
Mhm.
But anyway, with that said, what do you got? You go ahead and start about principle number 8.
Yeah, I think there's a lot here, and I think this one's probably, as good as any one we're going to go through, in my opinion. And kind of gets into some of the things that I'm super passionate about, which is like property rights and, some of that stuff. But I think really what this says is that those basic human rights predate any government. Therefore, any government has no ability to remove them, which is what they meant by unalienable rights, in my opinion. They were saying it was coming from a creator, and I really love that they used the word creator. That was a perfectly chosen word, in my opinion.
Right. I'm in agreement there. And a lot of people throw inalienable rights around, and
Mhm.
I honestly don't think they understand what that term actually means. You
Mhm.
know, inalienable rights are ones that we can't give up, even if we want to, and
Mhm.
they can be curtailed. Rights can be curtailed, i.e., we can be oppressed,
Mhm.
but such acts are morally unjustifiable. You can't, or yeah, morally unjustifiable. To say that, yeah, I said that right. Um, and what's that say about what's going on in our country now, where they're attacking people's rights all over the place from many different angles, and makes their actions unjustifiably morally, um, and that's the basis of the trust in government. You know,
Yeah, I would argue that these basic, rights that they talk about have been withered away. And because it really comes down to, you were talking about Blackstone. Blackstone's. I don't know if I can say this exactly right, but one of the articles that he wrote long, long, long time ago, he said it basically comes down to 3 principles, which is personal security, personal liberty, and private property. Is how he interpreted, those 3. And so I think you can take any 3 of those. Personal security, that's infringed upon every day. Personal liberty, that's infringed upon every day. And private property, I mean, you barely own anything anymore. You know how many
well,
old people who bought their house, paid for their house, it's completely paid for, are now paying more in property taxes than they ever did for their house. You
well,
know,
and you know what? You're right, that's true. But I'm gonna counter with, even though those rights have been oppressed and whittled away at, still doesn't mean they don't exist. And
yeah.
that's the basis of the 8th principle, is those rights are unalienable, unalienable. Is that how you? I'm not even sure how you pronounce it properly. I've heard it both ways, but
But gee, I agree with you. Those rights still exist, but I mean, a right is only as good as if you're willing to exercise it. I mean, if we're willing to give that right away and we're willing to not stand up and not say no and not do those kinds of things, that right may still be there. But
well, absolutely, absolutely, and I'm not arguing that fact.
yeah.
But some people, I have heard arguments saying that the government can take people's rights away.
Mhm.
And they use the fact of incarceration
Mhm.
as that. They use military service as that.
Mhm.
But one, the the first one is somebody has done an action to forfeit their rights as part of the social compact. And the second one is when you join the military, you voluntarily agree to follow the UCMJ in its full. And the UCMJ does not negate your constitutional rights, but it does regulate them. And is regulate the right word? You're in the military. You know what I'm talking about, though, right? So yeah, one's voluntary and one you've done something wrong and you've forfeited your rights through social compact.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, according to, if we're just going on what the founder said, that shouldn't happen.
Actually, there's some writings, as I don't remember if it was this week or the week before. I was reading about it, and there were actually some correspondence back and forth between some of the founding fathers about that very subject, and some of the founding fathers, said yes, there are actions that can cause you to temporarily forfeit your rights.
Except that's not what it says. That's not what the Constitution says.
Okay, forfeit's not
right?
the word.
Yeah, well, I mean, the arrangement of this statement reveals the founders' belief that individual rights pre-exist the establishment of government. So if they pre-exist and I'm just arguing for the, the bungee of just going through that with you, but that individual rights pre-exist the establishment of government. Therefore, because the individual rights pre-exist the establishment of government, can government then remove the right? Or maybe murder, for example, is a natural
law. No, murder is not. Murder is not part. I'm gonna say it's not, because that goes back to the basis of or the difference between thou shalt not kill and thou shalt not murder. All right, I'm gonna say that's not a 100% correct statement. And quite frankly,
I think my question is if your inalienable rights pre-existed the establishment of government, then how is it that the government can take away those rights in the case of a crime or in the case of something else, or the military or whatever?
Okay, here's my counter to that. When you're incarcerated by the Constitution, once you're done serving your sentence, all your rights should be restored. And I am a firm believer that felons, if they have done their prison sentence and they've served their time, they should get their Second Amendment rights back. They should get their voting rights back. They should get every single constitutional right back. And the state has said, no, you cannot have that. And I think that goes into what you were saying earlier about, the rights being oppressed, and the military, you're volunteer. You don't have to follow the UCMJ if you're willing to face the consequences. You don't have to. There's not a single military member out there that has to do what their commanding officers or the UCMJ says. They can choose, and I know a lot of guys that choose not to obey orders. I know a lot of guys that spent time in the brig. I know a lot of guys that got kicked out of the military because they didn't abide by the agreement that they entered into. But
if they do that, they risk losing life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness by the powers of the government, which those rights were inalienable and pre-existed the government, right?
Okay, maybe there's a disconnect in the words that we're using, because you say lose, and with our rights, when I say lose their rights, I mean they are permanently oppressed. I can't believe, and I say that because I can't believe the founding fathers wrote the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and the Constitution without some thought as to people that do not follow them, right? Because what you're talking about, if we take it to the logical conclusion of your argument, then it's total anarchy. It predates the state, so therefore I can do anything I want, and that's the textbook definition of anarchy. The state doesn't exist, and I
agree with that because they say that it was endowed by their creator. And so I think part of this says that it's not a government thing, it's a 10 commandment thing in their eyes, many of them as Christians, as we've talked about this, or whatever those natural laws we talked about in the last couple episodes,
Mhm.
whatever those natural laws are, and that those natural laws also predate government and they are of the highest power. And so I think the argument could be made that it's a natural law thing, not a government law thing. And when you talk about the military, which obviously would have come after all of these kinds of things, that these basic inalienable rights predated all of those things, but did not predate natural law or God's law or whatever your creator's law is.
Well, and William Blackstone, I've got a lengthy quote from him, but one of the parts of this quote is, um, those rights then, which God and nature have established and are therefore called natural rights, such
Mm-hmm.
as are life, liberty, need not the aid of human laws to be more effectually invested in every man than they are. So I'm taking what that says is the the government's laws are not making those natural rights, they're not enhancing them. Am
Mm-hmm.
I reading that right?
I think so. I mean, I read, let me see if I can find it here real quick in my notes. There's a really interesting paragraph here to me that really, I sat and read this paragraph like 10 times because it was just kind of powerful to me. But it said the arrangement of this statement reveals the founder's belief that individual rights pre-exist the establishment of government. A radical notion at the time, the declaration begins, we hold these truths to be self-evident by referring to the aspects of the subsequent statement as self-evident truths. The founders insist that they do not merely apply to colonialists, but rather they are universal. Included in these universal truths is the idea that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This bold assertion insists that no one life is more valuable than the next, and that by virtue of sharing the same rights, no individual has the authority to rule over or oppress another.
Okay. Well, yeah, let me. I'm reading this long quote from William Blackstone,
Mhm.
and let me finish that out because I think this hits directly to the heart of what you're talking about. It says, no human legislation has the power to abridge or destroy them, unless the owner of the right shall himself commit some act that amounts to a forfeiture. And I think that last part, amounts to a forfeiture, is the sticking point there. There's a
Mhm.
difference between the government coming to me and saying you're going to go to prison and I've done absolutely nothing wrong as far as it legally it goes.
Mhm.
And I'm not talking about the morality of the law either. I'm just talking a, a moral just law, like thou shalt not murder. Um,
Mhm.
if I commit murder, then I have committed some act that amounts to a forfeiture. So
Was that Blackstone that said that?
yeah, Blackstone said that.
Well, here's something interesting. So here's another quote. It says the equal, this is by Blackstone as well. The equal rights shared by all humans are unalienable. They cannot be taken away. This is because they are granted not by any man or institution, but rather they are endowed upon individuals by their creator. Only the one who grants rights has the authority to take them away.
Okay.
So
That
I think what this is saying is God has his judgment.
well got and I
That's
think what
interesting. I'll have to debate this because you
well
couldn't
and
just
I
have.
think I know I think you're right and I think it fits in really well with what I just said because the legal system is supposed to be moral and just and it's supposed to be built upon God's laws.
Mhm.
And whenever the legal system starts going against God's laws, then that's where we run into trouble,
Mhm.
right? Now, there's a huge, monstrous theological discussion to go on there, which, quite frankly, is I don't think I could wrap my head around it tonight, man. It was a long day. No, but I think what the crux of it is is the state has no right to take it away. Here, let me back up a step. Okay, so we discussed it last week that you cannot sell yourself into slavery, right? You because these rights are unalienable, you cannot morally sell yourself into slavery. And if somebody pays you to go into slavery, then they have a moral duty to reverse that transaction and set you free. Okay. I think somebody that goes against the law, somebody that breaks a moral and just law, is not selling themselves into slavery. Now, that's not a we can discuss the prison system and that whole
I
thing.
want to talk about the credit system.
Yeah.
Okay, you said you cannot sell yourself into slavery. So should
Well,
that all mortgage banks should let the mortgages go because
you know, you know what the Shemitah is in Jewish tradition?
Mm-mm.
Every 7 years, uh, there's in Orthodox Jewry, um, all debts are canceled. The debtor cancels all the debts. Now, it rarely happens in the world in general. From my understanding, there's still some Orthodox Jewish cults. Uh-oh.
Durability and sorry, man, it just turned on.
Uh-oh. So, you know what? They don't like what we're talking about, man. They're trying to shut us
No,
down.
no, I'm like, what is going on here?
So yeah, I think there is something behind that where you know have people sold themselves into slavery through debt, and I'm going to say yes, they have. Are they morally right to do so? No, they're not. I'm saying it as somebody that's dug myself out of debt several times. You know, um, we can talk about the credit system and the banks and all that stuff.
Or let's talk about taxes.
Okay.
I mean, do you sell yourself into that? Just like I talked about, one of the things that breaks my heart in this world, and I know several old fixed income people who are selling their homes because they can no longer afford the taxes. These are people who worked their whole lives, 40 or 50 years at some place, who now they have to sell it because they can't keep up with the taxes.
Well,
Paid off, house is paid off.
I'm sitting here listening to listening to these things that you keep mentioning, and the only thing that's running through my mind is the argument eventually turns to, are the laws that are causing this just and morally right? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah,
Are
I would
these
argue
laws,
they're not laws.
or the systems, is
Mhm.
yeah, they are. The credit system in America and the world is based upon law. They cannot, the if you go into foreclosure on your house, the bank cannot come after you if it weren't for laws.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think the basis of all these things, it all goes back to something that's immoral and unjust. And
Sad to me.
it really is. And
Mhm.
folks, I apologize. It's like a great big giant black pill being shoved down your throat tonight. And I didn't think doing it.
Yeah. See,
Hey,
that's my job, right?
right.
I
No,
mean,
no, you're not the one that did it. Just the
yeah,
facts. I mean,
it's
cramming
what it is.
you can't argue with the fact that if you take principle number 8 and you start arguing all these things, it all comes back down to the system and the law, the legal system and the debt system and everything else is immoral and corrupt. And that's how people's rights are abridged
Mm.
or oppressed. You
But
know,
there's a guy right now on my farm, right now doing some work for me, who worked for the last 50 years, employed lots of people, paid lots of taxes. In fact, probably paid 6 or 7 cents or 60 or 70 cents of every dollar in, paid his whole life long, paid his entire farm off, paid everything off, got ill, became retired, went on Social Security. Now he doesn't make enough money to keep up on the taxes of his family farm that's been in his family for 125 years, and now he's having to sell pieces of it off just to keep up. And this is a guy that contributed millions of dollars to the system for 40 years.
well, I
Sad.
know I know the gentleman too, and
You do. It's sad because it
I
anyway,
don't know what to
you're
say.
gonna get sorry,
And
man.
honestly, I mean, what can you say? I mean, um, the only thing I can think of at this point is that points to the building community to help
Mhm.
people like that.
Mhm.
You know, um, taxes taxes take money out of people's pockets so they can't be charitable.
Mhm.
And so, we're getting the double whammy. He's getting hurt on taxes, and then we're paying taxes, and we don't have the amount of the amount of money to help people, So
I'd love to see somebody get enough balls to stand up and try to get a law passed that says once you hit retirement age, you no longer pay property tax.
um is it Texas?
Mhm.
There's at least one state that I know that once you hit 65, you don't pay property taxes.
Oh, that should be I don't want to say a law because I'm just pretty anti-laws, but
Well, a curtailment on the law. How about that?
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, John F. Kennedy, I found a cool quote from him. He said that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And um I was doing some more research. That on June 7th, 1776, Thomas Jefferson wrote almost the exact ideas into the Virginia Declaration of Rights, except it's worded differently. Um, it, that all men are are by nature equally free and independent, and have certain inherent rights, of which, when they enter into a state of society, they cannot by any compact deprive or divest their prosperity, namely the enjoyment of life and liberty, with the means of acquiring and possessing property, and pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety. And
What was the date of that?
June 7th, 1776.
Okay.
So,
June 7th. So that would have been pre.
yeah, it was pre.
I, that's interesting. So what came out in the declaration would have been the edit of that,
Right.
would have been the edit of that document.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm. Interesting.
It was just I found it interesting, and that he used inherent rights and entering into the state of society. Um, just some of the wording in that is very interesting because it changes it just slightly, you know. Um, anyway, I don't really have anything else on that. That's number eight was really deep.
Mhm.
I had a hard time doing a research on it this week because it's just wrapping your head around what exactly is a right. There's the definition of a right to many people is completely wrong.
Yeah. Well,
We've got rights for everything, and they're not rights. You know,
well,
and
there,
then
but it's kind of gotten to where it's symbolic rights. I mean, the fact of the matter is your life, your liberty, and your pursuit of happiness can be taken away for jaywalking. Fact.
yeah,
You get a ticket for jaywalking. You don't go to court. You get a warrant out for your arrest, right? You just continue on, continue on, continue on, continue on, continue on. You can lose all three of these by jaywalking.
yeah. Well, and I guess we blackpilled everybody. What's the solution?
Yeah, that's a super, super hard one. I mean,
Exactly.
I think this is, I mean, I think ultimately the solution is we've got to get back to a natural right and that natural right supersedes everything else. But however, we're so far along, bud, that I don't know how in the world you begin to deal with the corruption and the stuff that goes on at the top. You got to get involved locally. You got to build community. And I don't even know if that will get there. I don't,
Well,
bud.
I think
You
it's a
know,
start. Um, you know, I'm going to bag on Ron Paul, and I'm probably going to upset some people. Ron Paul made comments, very blanket comments about freedom and the Constitution and stuff, and he said it as though he didn't have any concern for the repercussions of actually implementing that stuff.
mhm.
And my point is, it took us at least 180 years. I mean, if we go using the Civil War as a breaking point, if we use that as a breaking point, 180 years to get where we are now. And you can't just turn it around on a dime.
No.
It's not a race car where you can do a J turn. It's more like a super carrier where it takes 5 miles to turn it around.
Well, but I think we do it wrong. I think that a lot of people, If everybody would go understand what they mean by going galt, I think you could turn it around because you're dealing in the currency that causes all of this. I mean, the system depends upon it. And I think the more we can take our productivity and put it in a positive direction, I think the faster this thing can get turned around.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we do that by starting local.
We do it by starting local and building community and doing for yourself. I mean, I think this is a big one too, is taking accountability for your own actions. More importantly, taking accountability for the results of your own actions, right? And say, hey, it's on me. I did it, either good or bad or whatever it is. But people just don't do that today. It's this constant victim, culture and all of that. So I think it starts with all of that. But I mean, go preach to 330 million people that they need to stand up and take accountability for not only their actions, but for the consequences of those actions. And good luck with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
hang on one second. All right. I got something. Where is it? I found the quote from Bill Mollison that I was talking about in our live chat the other day. Let me pull it up because I think it's very telling. Let me pull it up. It says, the greatest change we need to make is from consumption to production, even if on a small scale in our own gardens. If only 10% of us do this, there is enough for everyone. Hence, the futility of revolutionaries who have no gardens, who depend on the very system they attack, and who produce words and bullets, not food and shelter.
Yeah.
And
who depend on the very system they attack. That is super, super well said.
Yeah, and it was enough that I put it as a community post on my channel yesterday.
Yeah.
So I think that's how we start. Grow a garden. Seriously, start a garden. Produce your own food.
But and that might sound simple, but it's actually true. That's kind of what I mean by going galt and taking productivity out of the system. As much as you do for yourself, but I'm telling you, you watch the dollar within 3 or 4 transactions, they've got all the money back.
Yep.
100% of it through taxation. And the more you can get it out of that system and do for yourself, I think the quicker we get there.
Absolutely. All right, we're back from a short break. Tag, you talking about something offline. What was it?
Yeah, well, I just think that, I'm arguing the counterpoint, which I do a lot because I just think it's important that we get discussion out there. But the truth is, what I believe is that your rights can be taken from you. And I think they can be taken from you if you remove the rights of somebody else. But I don't think they're really taken from you from government, because in the beginning of the statement, what it says is, that among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The key word in there is among, suggesting that there are others. And so when they talk about given to you by your creator, those others, what they're talking about, in my opinion, is the 10 commandments, right? Thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not. And that those laws, I guess, the laws that come down from God are what standard laws should be based upon, right? That our laws should be moral and our laws should be just to guarantee the rights, these unalienable rights that is given to us by our creator. And that's what the law's purpose is. So I actually believe that your rights can be taken from you if you remove them from somebody else. But I just think it's important to point out that when they say things like only the one who grants rights has the authority to take them, that's a big statement, so I wanted to make sure that we pounded on that a little bit and flushed it out.
Right. And my comment to that was, if we look at that statement and then the basis behind Judeo-Christian theology and the Western law that's based on that, I think if you look at it in the whole, I think both the statements can be true. I mean, you can forfeit your rights by violating somebody else's rights.
And I think what they're talking about, Bud, is divine law.
Right. Okay.
And takes us to
principle number 9. Folks, I'll tell you what, I was telling Tag during the break, it took us a lot longer to get through principle 8 than I thought it would. I had a hard time wrapping my head around it, but man, it's a way deeper subject than what I thought it was. All right, principle number 9. To protect man's rights, God has revealed certain principles of divine law. Okay, the question that principle raises is, what is divine law? And looking at it, I had a vague recollection, but I got a better one now. So divine law is any law that comes directly from God's natural law, and the theory suggests that it's a right inherent to existence. Just it's a birthright. You get the divine law comes only from God, where natural law is set in the intrinsic values of humans. We talked about that a couple of episodes ago. Divine law may differ from religion to religion. I'm reading off my notes. I apologize. Natural law is a constant across the globe and is based on human nature. And divine law involves devotion. Natural law involves reasoning and intrinsic values. So we're looking at the difference between God's divine law and man's law, basically. Not the natural, not man's law, natural law. The basis of the universe. Am I making sense?
I think this is magical. And I think this is I love that we went through everything we went through in 8. I knew this was coming. But if you read the actual principle, it says the founders knew that God had revealed certain laws for human happiness, such as laws against killing, stealing, adultery, lying, coveting, etc. These are reflected in the right of man to form a government to protect the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and property as outlined in the Declaration and the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights. Law of nature is divine law.
Yes. Yes, that is a correct statement. I'm gonna agree with that 100%.
Yeah, that's good. But I think it's neat how we go through all that, and then the very next principle, which obviously we knew, but really kind of addresses that in a lot of ways.
Exactly, and that's why, folks, we had originally planned on going through 8, 9, and 10, but as I was researching it and stuff, principle number 8 and principle number 9 are the basic foundations of the 10th principle. And if you want to go look it up on I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't want to ruin the surprise. But I couldn't have us go through these two and then do principle number 10 and then not talk about principle 11, which is directly related to it. So these two, and I didn't realize it until we started talking tonight, exactly how fundamentally basic they are
to
the next two principles. And you can't have the principle number 10 without 8 and 9 being set up and being true, and so how did I want to say it? Well, you know what, let's go to Blackstone. Here's the quote from Blackstone that I found. The doctrines thus delivered we call the revealed or divine law, and they are to be found only in holy scriptures. Now remember, he was a Christian. These precepts, when revealed, are found by comparison to be really a part of original law of nature, and they tend in all their consequences to man's felicity. And I think that's just a fancy way of saying exactly what you said. The natural law flows out, or divine law flows out of natural law, and it's given to us by God. And that's his found only in holy scriptures part. And so and it goes back, there's going to be people that argue, well, okay, so it's a Christian document. No, it applies to everybody. It just so happens that there's a whole slew of universal truths in the theology that apply no matter who you are and no matter what you believe. You can not believe in God, and these things still hold true. They are self-evident, right?
But you and I talked in some of the earlier ones about one of the brilliance of this whole entire document is that they really did intend it to be universal. That just being born gave you these rights, whether you were Muslim, Christian, Hindu, whatever you were, you all had these rights. And we quote a lot of Christianity in here because obviously they were majority Christian, but I think I agree with you, that the laws applied regardless. When I was reading through it, I found a couple things that were interesting. It says that divine law is irrefutable. Divine law cannot be denied or disputed. And when God's laws are obeyed, relevant blessings always result. Blessings are always predicated upon obedience to applicable law.
Right. Well, and that goes back. I've always said that the Ten Commandments work because they're universal truths. I mean,
Right.
don't follow the Ten Commandments and see how hard your life gets.
Right.
Seriously.
I would say that differently. I would say that the Ten Commandments make so much sense because they follow natural law.
Yeah.
Which applies to everybody,
Well, and Blackstone also said, and this sentence here is just, it's so profoundly simple, it's not even funny. Basically, he's talking about how the principles are revealed in divine law and how we should react to them. And he literally says this, the direct quote, that we should live honestly, hurt nobody, and should render to everyone his due. I mean, gee whiz, if everybody lived by that simple one line right there, we wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Right. I've done a lot of videos on my channel about life lessons and, about living your life according to your terms and staying true to who you are and being good to people, even if they're not good to you, and if more people would stand on those kinds of principles, God's truth really is true, regardless of what your God is, and yes, I don't think I could agree more. I think where the argument always comes into this is that a lot of people say that truth is only a subjective experience.
Yeah.
Right. And although I kind of 80% agree with them, but it's 80% because there are those natural laws that are just true.
Well, yeah, there, the problem is that people look at things subjectively instead of objectively, and that's and that's across all of society and all of our culture right now. I mean, just how many problems are caused now because people look at these natural laws and look at them subjectively and then put their own spin on it. The whole gender thing is a prime example.
I think the 80% comment I made, but really has to do with, and I'm going to get in total trouble here, and I'm going to get hate mail. And when I get hate mail, then I love you anyway, and blah, blah, blah. But this is why I'm kind of opposed. I don't want to say kind of opposed. This is why I'm very, very skeptical of organized religion. Right here. Okay. Because let me go back. So in European history, the political doctrine of the monarchs, was that the king asserted that the king arrived his authority from God, and therefore he could not be held accountable.
Right.
This is the spin that I'm talking about, right? I'm not talking about those natural laws that come from. I'm talking about, that as,
you're talking about religiosity.
Right.
The act of being religious.
Right.
And
right.
yes, I would agree that almost 100% of the problems with the modern church in the Western world is based on religiosity and not the religion itself.
Right.
So, and that goes back.
For the record, G, just so I say it, there are great churches out there. There are great things out there. I'm not bashing them, but I'm not a big fan of, that.
Well, I get it. I mean, we've been searching for a church for going on 6 years now, and of recent, I'm not going to lie, our search has not been very hard. We haven't been looking for one very hard, for that very reason.
You know what, G, I don't totally want to derail this conversation, but you know what you ought to do? You ought to get with the community and do a prayer study group.
Oh, I've been thinking about that. That. You know what it comes down to, and this is going to make me sound so bad, is the resource of time. And I know the exact thing that somebody's going to say is not that I don't have time, it's that I don't make the time.
I was going to say, God's not worth your time.
Thanks. I appreciate that. I didn't think it was going to come from you. I thought it was going to come from somebody else, but thanks for convicting me again. Folks,
Dude,
I know I'm doing
this isn't what friends are for. What's friends for?
Absolutely. Keep me accountable, man. I've been thinking about it. We did a trip up to, this is this is kind of along the topic here, but we did a trip to Jamesport 4 or 5 years ago,
Mm.
and they have house churches, and they literally have a buggy with the Bibles and all the stuff they need to hold a service, and
Mhm.
they just drive around to people's houses and set it up in the living room and
Yeah.
do it there, and I think come sometime soon, that may be what we have to do. Uh, churches are agents of the state once they sign that 503B, and eventually it may come down to us having to do it in our houses.
Yeah. Yeah, John Jacob Schmidt, which I don't really listen to anymore. I used to listen to all the time with Radio Free Readout.
Yeah,
He talks a lot about the underground church and about how we're being pushed more and more towards that all the time. But I don't think you need a temple to worship. I don't think you need an organized religion to be Christian and to be a believer and to be a good person. I think that the living room church probably actually works better.
yeah.
It's probably more authentic.
Well, and somebody's going to correct me if I'm wrong, but what's it say? Where two believers come together, you've got a church body,
Yep.
you know?
Amen. Amen.
And I say it's related to principle number 9 because we can't fully understand principle number 9, and we can't understand the full ramification of it unless we understand divine law. And no, we're not going to be, unless you're some big theologian, we're not going to become really fluent in it, but we at least need to be conversational in it.
Mhm.
We need to know what's morally right, morally wrong. We
Mhm.
need to be able to live honestly, hurt nobody, and render everybody their due. And we can't do that unless we're and I'm using Christianity, but any religion that holds those truths is you can follow it.
Mhm.
And the it applies to you. Divine law applies to you. You know, so I think again it comes down to the locality. We understand this by acting local and thinking local.
Mhm.
You know, I'm not gonna look for an answer to this on Sunday morning TV. I'll tell you that, and I'm
Mhm.
not gonna look for the answer to this in a big mega church.
Yeah.
But
I found a quote for you, bud.
go for it.
This is actually a pretty modern quote. This came from President Russell Nelson in 2017 for the Worldwide Devotional for Young Adults. He said this up on stage. And he said, that is why it is imperative that you know God's laws. They control this universe and multitudes of others. When divine laws are broken, consequences follow. Even though our hearts ache for those who broke God's laws, penalties must be paid. Divine law must be obeyed.
Absolutely. That's a great quote.
Yeah.
Could not have said it better. I literally couldn't have said it better.
Yeah. That's why I, put it on my notes.
Well, Tag, you got anything else to add to this one?
Yeah, no, life is grand, and I look forward to doing these. I think they're fun. I like bantering back and forth with the G, and thank you for including me. And I think it's fun, and I think we're going to enjoy it the rest of the way out. And I'll
Oh,
guarantee you that not just your audience listening, but you and me both will be smarter coming out of the back end of
oh,
it.
I definitely feel much more informed. You know, um, Next week we're gonna have a special guest.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think people are gonna really enjoy it. Uh, he's gonna add a special flavor to talking about principles 10 and 11. You
Yeah,
know,
you're talking about hot chilies. That's the flavor.
yes, hot chilies. He he is definitely he has no problem taking the filter off.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe
So
he's unfiltered.
yeah, maybe he's unfiltered. We'll find out. We'll
Yeah.
find out how unfiltered he is. But okay, folks, listen, if you enjoyed this, share it with somebody that might find it enjoyable too. Hit the notification bell. Tag, you got any uh aside from your big announcement tomorrow? You got anything else going on that people need to know about?
Oh yeah, I've been so busy lately. As you know, I have I consult for a couple industries that put me in places to learn lots of things, and I spent the last 3 or 4 days, man, in a room that just gave me things to shake my head and made me thankful that I'm doing what I'm doing, and so but everybody just hold the line, just keep fighting as hard as you can fight. We got a lot of trouble days in front of us, and get back to some of these basic principles, take accountability for yourself, and hold the line. Don't give an inch.
And I don't know about you. I've got some definite opinions on the timeline of things happening. And I think when we get offline at some point, we need to talk about those timelines and see if they match up, because
But I've got a story to tell you one of these days. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
people aren't going to be knocking on my door because I found this information out, are they?
That's why we're not talking about it online, right?
This is our lives, folks. This is our lives.
It's good. It's good. I'm gonna go grow another tomato, right? I'm gonna
Oh,
go
absolutely.
Oh, man,
Absolutely.
by the way, the garden is man, we are harvesting like mad. I don't even know what I'm gonna do with all of it.
Well, we got the freeze dryer back up.
Okay. Is it
If you wanna
empty?
freeze dry some tomatoes or some peppers or anything, let me know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it empty? I can do this.
No, right now it's got broccoli, corn, peppers, and something else in it. And then we've got to run another batch of Skittles, the freeze dried Skittles, which are back on the menu, folks. If you guys want freeze dried Skittles, email us and we'll work out a way to get them paid for and get them shipped to you.
Okay, so how about I'll make you a deal, and this is the way business should be done, throughout, our community. And I don't have a freeze dryer because I run off grid and you can't stop the cycle. So it's impractical for me. But so if I give you the produce and you freeze dry it and we split the bounty, is that fair?
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
The
sounds
only
good.
thing
You got a deal.
only thing that needs to be worked out is percentages.
Yeah, 50-50.
Oh, okay, that's better than the one I was thinking. Thanks.
Well, I'm just saying that's fair, right? I mean, you
Yeah,
got
no, it's absolutely
the
fair.
time and the energy.
It's absolutely fair.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'll get you a bunch of produce you can freeze dry for me, and you keep half the load. And
Well,
off we go.
why don't I have Yoda talk with B and they can work out a time,
Roger.
because she's
Roger.
the one that's home all the time doing the freeze drying. I'm just here to fix it whenever it breaks.
Yeah, isn't that funny? I just volunteered Bethany's efforts in her garden, and you volunteered Yoda's efforts on the freeze dryer, and we made a deal without even talking to him.
Absolutely. How many times have they done that to us? I don't know how many times I've been volunteered to do stuff that I had no idea I was doing.
Yep,
It's only fair.
only fair.
It's only fair. Fair and just. That's what we're looking for.
Fair and
Give
just.
everybody their due. All right,
Amen.
folks, listen, this has been really enjoyable. I'm glad you guys were here. Go check out Tag's channel at 7 o'clock tonight for the live and his big announcement. I think you guys are going to find it really exciting. And most importantly, Tag, what should they go do?
Go live a life done free.
Absolutely. Take care, all.
Hey, guys.
Thanks, Milo.